What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with episode 68 of Dynasty Decisions. We took a bit of a hiatus, but we're back. We're here to break down some of your guys' teams. The season is now over. I'm sure you guys are looking to potentially transition those teams, maybe from contenders if you didn't win the championship, or if you did, over to rebuilders, and maybe vice versa, looking to take that step to contend next year. We will cover 8 teams. All of these teams submitted via our Patreon, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. If you want first priority to these Dynasty Decisions episodes, that is where you can get it. And if you enjoy this video at any point, you guys know what to do. Leave a like, subscribe, comment down below any of your thoughts, all that good stuff. But before we get into it, Danny, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. And yeah, you guys would have already made your playoff pushes if you have some competitive teams. You would have already known the result of this past season. So what's next to do? What should you do with your contending rosters? Are they teams that you want to hold into next year and potentially compete again? Or is it time to strip them down? And on the flip side, if you're rebuilders, you have the 101, you have, maybe the 103 and the 106, kind of knowing where your leverage points are with the assets you have this offseason and when to capitalize on those assets. So yeah, I'm ready to roll. This is really, the true diehard difference of Dynasty Fantasy Football. Because a lot of people maybe clock back in, early April, maybe late March, once they get, a familiar footing with these prospects. If you are ahead of the curve right now, we're in January going into February. If you're ahead of the curve right now, you can make some moves that can capitalize on a lot of value at this point when people don't really have their eye to the fucking test right now. So
yeah, and that's why me and you only play in, 5 to 8 dynasty leagues rather than like 30, because it's hard to be this committed, to be this, proactive in that many dynasty leagues. But, mumbo jumbo aside, let's get right into it. Let's get into the first team. But before we do that, let's hit the intro. All right, so the first team, like I said before the intro, comes from Trent. Every team in this video is a patron member, so appreciate the support over there. If you guys want to join, get first dibs, get access to our Dynasty Rankings Manifesto 2.0, all that good stuff. Link will be down below in the description. But Trent is the first team that we're going to cover. It is a best ball 12-team Superflex PPR Dynasty League. You guys can see the team on the screen there. Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson as the main quarterbacks, with J.K. Dobbins, Devin Singletary, etc. at running back. Amon-Ra, Marquise Brown, Wan'Dale Robinson, Calvin Ridley, Jacoby Myers, Sky Moore, Michael Thomas, and some fodder there at wide receiver. Dalton Schultz, Noah Fant, Noah Gray, Hunter Long there at tight end. And then 102, 105, 202, 208, 302, etc. at his 2023 picks. And then he has a couple extra 2024 seconds in addition to the rest of his draft capital. So overall, looking at the team, what are your thoughts initially? And then we'll get into some of the trades that he's got listed here.
for sure. I mean, looking at this team, obviously, you got your 2 main quarterbacks there, a little bit weaker at running back, but like we always do, we want to build that way because they want to be the last addition to our teams once we're ready to contend. Wide receiver, Amon-Ra, Marquise Brown, your main 2 guys there. Calvin Ridley, obviously coming back from that suspension this upcoming year, working with Trevor Lawrence. I think that's a good, wide receiver 3 to have. Wan'Dale, some upside, Jacoby Myers, et cetera there. And then Dalton Schultz, obviously, decent, but not like complete needle mover. So I would say as currently constructed, obviously I'm going to get into the picks in a second, but as currently constructed, I think this could be, maybe like a fringe playoff team, but not necessarily, a damning contender. However, with the 102, with the 105, you got a few seconds next year. I'd be willing to potentially leverage some of those picks to get some upgrades at much needed spots. So what are your thoughts on how he should, basically use those picks?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough that you don't have the 101 because I do think if you add Bijan Robinson to this team and then you're able to still somehow hold on to that 105, you can get yourself a Gibbs or maybe whoever your RB3 is or whatever falls to you there at 105, and you might be able to reboot this team really quick and build out that running back core. I would inquire about 101, just given that you probably could, house money it next year, given that Kyler Murray's coming off of an ACL tear, Deshaun Watson first year, really as the true entrenched starter there with the Browns. So if you added Bijan to this team, I think you could probably compete as soon as 2024, really, really big time contender. So if it only costs you, maybe your your league mates are not really hip to the Bijan conversation. Maybe they're a little behind the 8 ball. You offer somebody your 102, your 202, your 208, maybe another piece, and you can get Bijan Robinson for that low of a price. I do think that might be a move I might be looking to make. If the guy knows Bijan's great and he wants your 102 and 105, maybe I wouldn't go that far. Maybe just spend those picks, or maybe trade them for future picks in 2024, or maybe for veterans later on at different points. But I think given your draft capital, given the state of your team, you're going best pick available, best player available, no matter what. 102 to me is a little early for Jahmyr Gibbs. I know your need is running back. I probably would not pick Jahmyr Gibbs with that pick. I would leverage the quarterback asset. We know, we want to be taking advantage of value pockets, and I can bet, my friggin' mortgage on the fact that I know that Bryce Young will be higher startup value than Jahmyr Gibbs once he's actually in the NFL. So I would leverage that 102 pick, maybe pick up the 104 in like a second rounder or something like that. If you want to select a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs with 104, then you can go ahead and do that, and maybe pick up, a later guy like a Tank Bigsby in the second round as a result from trading down from Bryce Young.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have three possible routes here. Obviously, you mentioned the Bijan route. If it's cheap enough, if it's not, don't even worry about that. The route that I think I favor the most, though, and maybe this is controversial, but I would probably look to see if you can, consolidate maybe a late first this year and try to pick up somebody's 24 first. And maybe with the 102 and the 105, you could do that a couple times. You're building out, still having picks this year, adding the depth to your team, but having, maybe 3 or 4 lottery shots, also making your team worse for the immediate future to better your pick for the 2024 future. So that's probably the route I honestly would take. You're probably, Kyler Murray, he's going to be slow coming off of that injury. Dalton Schultz, we don't really know if he's going to be back in Dallas. We don't know if he's going to leave. There's a lot more question marks about your team this year compared to what you had coming into this past season. So what I would do is use this year kind of as that retool year, gain some assets, gain some 24s. And I mean, I hate to be this guy, but next year's draft class is looking very, very good, especially at the running back position. There's no, pure Bijan running back at 101, which, I mean, if you had Bijan, it would be a different story. However, guys like, Raheem Sanders, Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum's coming back to Michigan, Travion Henderson. Like, there are probably, 4 or 5 guys we know right now that are going to be considered in the first round that, from a size standpoint, from a workload standpoint, I think are just at Gibbs level, if not maybe even, more projectable going forward.
Yeah, like I said, if you can take advantage of people, the immediacy of they want the picks now, then you can really, really rake some people over the coals. I think the biggest problem with this team is the stud factor outside of Amon-Ra and the 2 quarterbacks when they're healthy. You're not really, Amon-Ra, Chase, Jefferson. Like, you don't have this like stud factor at wide receiver unless you get Bijan. You don't really have that at running back. You don't have it at tight end. And like I said, once your quarterbacks are healthy, you will have it there. But that's pretty much where you're at the moment. So you get some work to do for sure. Let's get into these trades really fast. He sent away Isaiah Pacheco in a 4th for a 2024 second. That's an easy trade to make. You got a 7th round rookie running back. Looked good. Probably going to be a contributor throughout the duration of his rookie contract. But are we expecting the Chiefs to have this backfield next year? I think they're going to add at least a free agent, if not a free agent and a draft pick to this backfield. There's, I've seen mock drafts where they're taking Gibbs at the end of the first round. I've seen mock drafts where they've gotten Bijan to fall to them. I've seen mock drafts. I wouldn't be shocked if at the very least we get like a 2nd round pick and like an Alexander Madison added to this backfield. And suddenly Isaiah Pacheco just has very little value on the market.
Yeah, I mean, like, worst case, even if they don't add anybody, even if they bring back Jerick McKinnon, like Jerick McKinnon took some extremely valuable touches away from Isaiah Pacheco down the stretch. So I like that. You gain the value there, 2024 second, very deep class potentially with a couple of emergencies that can happen, especially at the quarterback position. So you're in a good spot there. Next deal, you received Dalton Schultz and Marquise Brown for Sanders, Mostert, Irv Smith, and Juwan Jennings. Like, yeah, you took this guy to the woodshed. Realistically, like I would say, even if you're the most pessimistic on Marquise Brown, I would still rather Marquise Brown over Miles Sanders. And then at that point, Raheem Mostert, Irv Smith, and Juwan Jennings, just give me a guy that shows that he can man targets in the next level. Are we going to be enamored with Irv Smith's, athletic upside for the next 6 years? No. Juwan Jennings, wide receiver 3-4 on a team that has Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. No. And then Raheem Mostert, he's a 32-year-old running back that's consistently dealt with injuries.
Yeah, exactly. I might take Marquise Brown over this entire package myself. Plus,
I
get
agree.
a guy in Dalton Schultz who's the top 10 tight end for us in Dynasty. And then you finally receive Michael Thomas. Again, you said you're hoping to flip him. I agree. I think he's a good acquisition, whether you're a rebuilder or a contender right now. You get Jalen Tolbert, who did absolutely nothing as a rookie, who couldn't even see the field in a decimated wide receiver core. Me and Danny were at that Cowboys-Bucks game. He couldn't even get on the field with Dennis Houston and those type of dudes out there. And the 402 is just basically useless. So, yeah, give me the shot on Michael Thomas. If he stays healthy, I think you're getting, a Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins caliber level asset for teams that are searching for that immediate production. So we went really in depth on Trent's team. We'll try and speed it up going forward, but I think you're in a good spot. You have a lot of flexibility. Again, go back and re-listen if you want to figure out what we want to do with those picks. Josh R, the next team that we're going to talk about here, 12-team Superflex. He lost a close matchup, first round of a 16 playoff as the 3 seed, so just missed out on the fantasy championship this year with Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, Jimmy G, etc. at quarterback, Barkley, Akers, Algier, Michael Carter, etc. at running back there, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Juju, Michael Thomas, Thielen, Tyler Boyd at wide receiver, Mark Andrews and Njoku at tight end. Does not have his first or his second round pick in 2023, does not have his second round pick in 2024, but he does have all of his picks in 2025, including pretty much all of his picks in 2024 as well. So he said recommended offseason moves because he does, he's a contender, but he has aging assets. And then also what value should he be looking for, expecting in return. He said he obviously loves the content that we put out. We really appreciate that. He said he's been listening for about a year now, and he said he promises to actually take our advice this offseason, did not listen to us on Juju or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So, I mean, we definitely get some things right around here. We definitely get some things wrong. We, feel good we weren't really on the side of acquiring either of those players in Dynasty League. So what are your thoughts on this roster? Do you think this is the type of roster that you're looking to overhaul? Is this the type of roster, maybe a move or two here and there? What are your thoughts?
For me personally, and again, I am, of the belief that unless I have a dominant, top 2 team, I'm going to strip it down. And you were the 3 seed last year. However, I would say that given the age of some of your assets, I would be looking to retool. And the reason why I'm looking to retool, again, you don't have your 2023 first, but that was already, the 108 that was already decided. You do have your 2024 first, and you do have your 2025, which is very, very critical for you wanting to retool this thing. Mahomes and T-Law are your untouchables. You are not dealing them no matter the circumstances. You're keeping those 2 players. But Saquon Barkley, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Juju, Michael Thomas. I mean, even if you got, value for Njoku or Mark Andrews, I would be looking to flip these assets either for younger assets plus picks, or straight up if you can get, 2 mid projected 2024 first for Mark Andrews, Tyreek Hill, maybe he nets you a first this year and maybe a late first next year from a contender. Those are the moves I'm looking to make, because ultimately I want to retool this thing so that by 2025 is when I'm fully ready to completely get back on the wagon. And with Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence, with the longevity that they should be able to provide you, they should be able to, still do their thing, but still have the value that they hold now by the time you're ready to compete. So because you have that stability at quarterback, it makes this retooling process, in my opinion, a lot more easy. And I mean, you're selling realistically a lot of these guys on their high. Tyreek Hill just had over a 20 PPR point per game ceiling or season. Saquon Barkley, obviously a big resurgence after the injury, quote unquote, proneness he's seen in the last couple years. Cam Akers, very, very strong end to the season. A lot of these assets that you have showed some very, very good stretches that are still going to be ringing in a lot of these Dynasty managers' minds. So the guy who finished second place this year, the guy who finished third place this year, if they're looking to, make a move to take him over the top and get that first place for next year, you should be able to start a little bit of a bidding war, I would say.
Yeah, even some of your lower end assets, if you package together Brock Purdy, Tyler Algier, and Tyler Boyd, you should be able to get first round capital for a package of that nature. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for you to be able to strip this down, build it into a dominant team if you want to go that route. I would say that is probably the route I would go as well, because you probably need a lot of things to break right in order for this team to compete. We know Saquon Barkley is going to be your stud running back, but after that, what happens if, the Rams out of running back or the Falcons out of running back? You don't necessarily know who your RB2 is going to be. You have Tyreek Hill and Deebo Samuel, who are both, aging-ish wide receivers, especially Tyreek. And then behind them, you have Juju and Michael Thomas, again, guys that are up there in age, not a lot of upside. If you can quickly flip, Tyreek Hill into Garrett Wilson and 2-2s or something like that, it makes way more sense to do that, kind of retool and overhaul this thing. Same goes for Mark Andrews as well. So I would say that's, the route that I would be looking to do. Your league, what people are going to be offering you. If this is a competitive type of league, where people know, Dynasty, and they know the value of players is going to be a little bit more difficult. But if people are all trying to compete every single year, all 12 teams, you're going to take guys to the woodshed. You're going to get 3 1s for Tyreek Hill. You're going to get, 2 1s and, solid pieces for Saquon Barkley. Like it'll be very easy in that type of league format. So obviously that's up to you knowing your own league. We can only give advice, as a general kind of philosophy on how we build teams. But I think you're in a good spot. You have a lot of, valuable assets. Like Danny said, I probably wouldn't move either of your quarterbacks because they're going to be great for you going forward. So overall, I think you're in a good spot. We can move on to the next team, which is from Jared T here. Yep. This is the Squad is the name of his team here. Justin Herbert, Trey Lance, Desmond Ridder, mainly at quarterback there. Alexander Madison, pretty much nobody at running back outside of a lot of high value handcuffs. And then Garrett Wilson, Rashad Bateman, Jahan Dotson, Calvin Ridley, David Bell, etc. there at wide receiver. Kyle Pitts as the main tight end, as we know, definitely a guy that we want to have in dynasty leagues. 101, 110, 111, 112. Unfortunately for you, it looks like you dealt a lot of players for first-round picks. 3 of them ended up being the last 3 first-round picks, which is not ideal. But then you also have the 201, the 210 there to go along with it. And then you have your first and your second in 2024 to go along with an extra first and 3 extra seconds in 2024 as well. So he said he got rolled by the draft order. Obviously, he definitely did not draw a great situation with those extra firsts, having them right at the end of the first round. He said he's looking to figure out how to best maximize this draft. He needs receivers, obviously, but he has Bijan, given that he has the 101 and the prime running back picks in the late first, early second area. What would you look to do with his rookie picks is basically the conundrum he's facing.
Well, for starters, this could be a segment in its own right. With this current roster as constructed, are you taking Bijan or are you flipping for the assets if the assets are available? Again, if the assets are not offered to an adequate degree for a type of asset like Bijan Robinson, you take Bijan and then you look to flip him in season if you don't deem this roster suitable for Bijan Robinson. However, if somebody's willing to offer you, let's say the 104, you have the 111, the 104, the 109, and the 2024 first. Let's just say hypothetically somebody's willing to put that on the table because they're looking to compete now. You flip them, right? If somebody's saying, oh, well, this guy's not going to take Bijan because he needs, that long-term value, I'm going to offer the 104 and the 109 in its own right. At that point, just take Bijan because in season, regardless of what happened, case in point, Breece Hall, he's going to be the running back overall in Dynasty, and you can get, top 15 level capital in terms of startup draft capital for a guy like Bijan Robinson. So it's kind of hard because, you do have a nice nucleus, I would say, but I would definitely look to flip Bijan. I don't think this is a team I would just take Bijan and keep him. If you're going to take Bijan, I would look to flip him. That's the main difference. So 101, if somebody offers you that package, you can flip them. The 110 to the 111 or to the 112. If somebody's literally offering you any type of 24 first round capital, you're taking it. Even if you have to say 110 and the 210 to get, a mid to late first next year, I'm doing that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I agree. Because then you have the opportunity that first becomes, a Drake May or a Caleb Williams or, one of Marvin Harrison or Brock Bowers or something like that. So I think you're in a good spot. You have
100%.
Justin Herbert and Kyle Pitts, who are obviously 2 locked and loaded long-term assets for you. Trey Lance, we expect to be, a great asset as well. If you wanted to mitigate the risk of Trey Lance, I don't hate the idea too of taking the 101, taking Trey Lance and going after maybe I think you should be able to get any quarterback in Dynasty you want with that type of package and maybe even something in return. Like if somebody's low on, Kyler Murray, given your team's construction, you might be able to trade Bijan and Trey Lance for Kyler Murray and multiple picks.
Yeah, that would make sense. I feel like
then you mitigate that risk of Trey Lance. That's really why I'm kind of looking at it with this team because, as young as Trey Lance is and as good as he can be, you can just completely get that risk off of your roster, maybe add a pick, add a better quarterback, a more secure quarterback long-term.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I would probably rather try to, maybe package Trey Lance in one of those late firsts and see if you can get up to even Justin Fields type of range. Do you think if
you could also do something like that if you want to still hold on to Bijan and stuff too, because you do have work to do. Like you said, you're still pretty weak at wide receiver. Your quarterback 2 for the time being is Trey Lance, but you don't necessarily know. The other thing too, I think in your position, if you hold those 110, 111, and 112 picks, I would really, really be hoping a quarterback from this draft class falls to you too, because I think that would help mitigate a lot of the risk with Trey Lance. If Will Levis, people are off of him and everybody hates him and he falls to 110, he's still going to be probably a top 10 pick. Same goes for Anthony Richardson if they get high draft capital, and you might be able to get one of those guys there as well. So a lot of things that you can do. He also mentions like, should I just load up on running backs 110 to 201 where he's picking? I probably wouldn't. I think you're going to take best player available no matter what. There's going to be good running backs on the board if Zach Charbonnet's and Zach Evans and these guys get good draft capital, Sean Tucker or whatever. And if they're the best available players, you take the best available players. Maybe you can flip them in season. Maybe you can hold them for when you're actually ready to compete. Or you just grab, a Josh Downs, mix in a quarterback or whatever the case is. You're basically just going best player available no matter what. Your team can kind of use a bit of everything outside of the tight end position. So I wouldn't be really married to any one strategy.
Yep. No, I would agree with you there. Just the main advice, of course, like we said, try to consolidate that 101 into multiple, very valuable assets that you can potentially piece together. Even like, again, if somebody's willing to like overpay with 24 picks, let's just say they have, 2 or 3 2024 firsts, and they're looking to make that jump, and they really, really want Bijan Robinson on their roster, and they're willing to overpay by that degree because they don't necessarily know the strength of the 2024 class, and they've been hearing about how good Bijan and how good the 2023 class is for the last 2 years. That's the type of new move that might be available in your league. If somebody was willing to offer 3 mid to late 2024 first round picks, as good as Bijan Robinson is, like, that can net you, maybe a franchise running back like Raheem Sanders, maybe, a stud wide receiver, even if it's not Marvin Harrison, maybe an Xavier Worthy. Maybe somehow one of those ends up the 102 or 101 and you get Caleb Williams or Drake May. Like, you have a lot of opportunity for appreciation of value with those picks. And given the current status of your team, it's also going to benefit your own first round pick, not having a top 5 level 2023 redraft pick at running back with Bijan Robinson on this team for production.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you're in a good spot. We can move on to Bryan Harris's team here. You guys can see it on the screen there. Another Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson combo. J.K. Dobbins, Travis Etienne, James Cook there at running back, Deontay Johnson, Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Gallup, David Bell, etc. there. Wan'Dale Robinson at wide receiver, T.J. Hawkinson as his main tight end with Greg Dulcich and Chig Okonkwo also there. 2023, 101, 106, 201, 202, 206, 208, etc. And then also all of his picks in 2024, including a couple extra third rounders. So it's a 12-team Superflex half PPR league. Overall, looking at this team, I would say it's got a pretty good foundation. I mean, you don't have a stud wide receiver, which is a little unfortunate. You have, probably Ayuk, I would say, is your most valuable and studly wide receiver that you have. Yeah. But you do have a lot of good depth there. You do have, I would say, a stud running back at Travis Etienne. You have 2 stud quarterbacks and, an upper class tight end in TJ Hawkinson as well. Plus, you're going to be adding, Bijan Robinson, assuming, to this team. I think, as far as his questions, he's looking at what offseason moves to make, what he should do with his picks. And again, that same question that everybody's coming back to, should I just draft Bijan and hold him? Should I, trade him away? Whatever the case is. Again, unless you're getting a Godfather offer 3 first-round picks, including like 2 pretty valuable ones, I'm probably just going to add Bijan to this team. Most likely, I would say more so than the last team we talked about. This one is more Bijan away from competing, especially if you grab yourself, a JSN or a Jordan Addison at 106. The other move that you might want to make potentially too is grabbing Will Levis or Anthony Richardson with this team, given that you have Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson. If you're trying to maybe play with house money this year and you love one of those quarterback prospects, I don't think that's a terrible move either. But for the most part, you're in a pretty flexible situation. 201, 202, going to be prime, second and third round running back territory. Probably get you guys like Josh Downs and Zay Flowers to help build out your receiver core as well. So you're really in a good spot. There's not really much I would change about this team. I think you're in a position, you're well set up to the point that you can just kind of, as the draft board falls to you, you can kind of just take advantage.
I would be looking at one potential move if it's available. Seeing if, 106 and Bateman can get you, a franchise level wide receiver. And, it's kind of a weird point because I don't necessarily think that the CeeDee Lamb or AJ Brown owner would bite on that. If they do, of course, that's free money. CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, I would much rather over Bateman in the 106 hypothetically. But even if it's like, say, for example, somebody's worried about Amon St. Brown and they're like, ooh, like he was good this year, but Jameson Williams is there next year and I don't know what to do with him. And maybe you can flip Rashad Bateman in the 106 and get maybe, Amon St. Brown in the 112 or Amon St. Brown in the 203 or something like that. You're getting, a more established receiver. As much as I like Bateman, I don't think he's going to be a true number 1 in the NFL that Amon St. Brown has shown. So if you can make that type of transition, still, maybe get a draft picks back the other way. And then maybe at the 203, add another running back with Bijan. You have, a stable of Dobbins, Etienne, Bijan, and, Kendre Miller that you can, semi-compete this year, but sort of house money until Kyler Murray is back in 2024 while still holding that 2024 first-round pick. I think that's a very, very easy move that you can make that adds talent to your team and adds a little bit more stud factor, because right now it's currently constructed. I think you got like a really good nucleus, a really good amount of depth. But the thing is outside of, maybe ETN and the quarterbacks, I don't necessarily see, a game-changing type of piece, which I think Amon-Ra St. Brown can do. And obviously, if you have Bijan Robinson, can absolutely do.
Yeah, the tough thing is I think most of his wide receiver core is like buy low candidates, right? Deontay Johnson, Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Michael Gallup, like Wan'Dale Robinson. None of these guys are like, high on the market value right now outside of really Brandon Ayuk. So for the most part, I think you're fine kind of just like spending your draft picks and playing with house money this year, hoping that your guys that you have at wide receiver gain some value, and maybe during the season you can make a move too. Like, for example, if during the season, I don't know, let's say T. Higgins misses like 6 games with like an injury.
That's an opportunity.
Flip, Elijah Moore, your second round pick, and James Cook or something like that for T. Higgins. Like, and Elijah Moore, let's say he's having like a resurgence, he's coming back into favor with the Jets or something like that. That might be a move that you could make at that point in time as well. Another guy I would maybe test the market on is J.K. Dobbins, just given the fact that he does have some, injury concerns, and he did, see a big time rise in his value as the season went along. And given that you're a house money team and not necessarily a team that's really, really looking to compete, it might be wise to see what you can get for Dobbins. Maybe you can use him in a package deal with one of your wide receivers to get a better receiver.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I thought the name you were going to say, and by far the most commented player on our tight ends video, I see the market for TJ Hawkinson, because if people view him as like this top 4 dynasty tight end right now, which basically every single comment on the video had like, oh, you guys are low on TJ Hawkinson, tight end 7, 10, 8, he should be like tight end 3 or 4. If you're getting like tight end 3 or 4 level value for TJ Hawkinson because he had a very good season last year, I'd be looking to do that, because I mean, Chigaquanko, Greg Dulcich, you got a couple,
you could also go after Pitts with this team too, with TJ Hawkinson and that move.
Hawk in the 106.
Yeah, well, you might not even have to pay that. You might be able to get away with like TJ Hawkinson, J.K. Dobbins, and Michael Gallup or something.
Somebody accepted that for Kyle Pitts.
I'm just saying, that's where Pitts is at in some people's minds, man. Some people haven't seen it with Pitts. They're not looking at the advanced stuff, and they just want to look at the box scores, and that's kind of where people are at with him. So it looks like, I mean, throughout the duration of this entire offseason, we're pretty much going to be telling everybody in these videos to go after Kyle Pitts if they can in a long-term rebuild. So I would say that's just going to be like copy and paste standard advice for most people. But we can move on to the next team here from Slaatsquatch here. Another patron member, Justin Fields, Mac Jones is his main 2 quarterbacks in a 12-team full PPR. It is a super flex league as well. Ramondre Stevenson, Khalil Herbert, and then some 0 RB guys there. Garrett Wilson, Brandon Ayuk, Rashad Bateman, Sky Moore, etc. at wide receiver. And then a tight end, he has Evan Ingram, Daniel Bellinger, and a couple other guys. So a pretty barren roster. A couple guys that are good build-around pieces with Fields, with Stevenson, with Garrett Wilson and Ayuk and stuff like that, who have a lot of value right now. Also has the 103 and 104 in this year's draft class, 202, 204 in this year's draft class, and then all of his future picks. I mean, I know what Danny's thinking right now, but Ramondre Stevenson probably on the trade block instantly, just given that this team is pretty far away. It's not a team that I'm looking to compete with. And Ramondre Stevenson as a 4th-round running back at risk of, adding pieces to this backfield, it's good to mitigate that risk. If you can re-roll that into a 2024 first, probably plus, given what Ramondre's value is at this point in time, that's probably the first move I'd be looking to make.
Yeah, I'm absolutely, shopping Ramondre Stevenson, shopping a guy like Evan Ingram because he had a good season this year. I mean, is there any other receivers that you think can get peak value for? I'm not selling Garrett Wilson or Brandon Ayuk, but and then again,
I get Bateman's more of like a buy low candidate.
I agree with that.
Probably not going to get a great amount of value for him.
Yeah, so overall, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson is the main one. The reason why I made that face is that I saw his trade question at the bottom, and I'll just read it out right now. The worst team in the league who needs quarterbacks and does not have their 1st-round pick this year wants to send him a 2024 1st-round pick for Mac Jones. Listen, I like Mac Jones. He's a solid quarterback. He can be, quarterback 15 at his peak, give or take. I think that's a reasonable range of outcome. But if you're telling me right now the worst team in the league wants to send you a 2024 first, potentially giving up, Caleb Williams, a Drake May, or other elite prospects for Mac Jones, I don't care if my only other quarterbacks are Justin Fields and Kyle Trask. I'm taking that every day of the week. Because A, you're getting Mac Jones's production out of your quarterback slot, because, I mean, Kyle Trask is not even going to be any close to Mac Jones next year. So it's making your own first round pick better on a team that you want to rebuild anyways. And then B, like if that pick ends up 101 and you traded Mac Jones for Caleb fucking Williams, man, just give yourself a pat on the back. And I can see now why that guy doesn't have his first round pick this year, because he's probably doing deals like that.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's probably going to orphan his team after
Oh,
another season, and you're going to have a very elite quarterback prospect as a result. So, I mean, in terms of his questions, he says, "What's your strategy? Who would you be targeting?" He took over this team as an orphan. There's a couple strong teams in the league, so you want to be building this thing out, long-term rebuild,
yes.
build out a stable of elite assets. I think the easy answer is make that trade for Mac Jones, 100%. Get yourself another shot at Caleb Williams, because you're already going to have a decent shot with your own pick. So you're going to have two good swings at an elite, potentially generational, transcendent quarterback prospect, another elite shot, potentially transcendent wide receiver prospect that we have coming out. Drake May is also going to be a great prospect, tight end, of course, with Brock Bowers as well. And with the 103 and 104, that puts you in a bit of a situation here, because typically I would say that 103 and 104 are going to be quarterback-centric picks, because, we have Stroud, we have, Bryce Young, we have Levis potentially going really high in the draft. Because in your back pocket that you have a good chance at Caleb Williams and Drake May, I might be inclined to potentially move those picks as well and see if anybody else is in need of a quarterback. And maybe they'll give you their 2024 and 2025 first, just to give you that 103 or something, and you can really, really load up your future picks. Or maybe they'll give you, a stud wide receiver or something like that for that 103. If you can go after like maybe a Drake London or something, a team that, could be a piece that could be a really good long-term rebuilding situation for you, help you build out your wide receiver core. Danny's about to say Kyle Pitts, I'm pretty sure. Oh, CeeDee Lamb, he's about to say. Okay, I probably wouldn't even be. I know like CeeDee Lamb's not old by any means, but I'd be looking even younger than CeeDee Lamb most likely.
It's fair, but if somebody's willing to say, okay, I need a quarterback desperately, and I'm willing to give you CeeDee Lamb for the 104, sign me the fuck up. Like, sign me the fuck up.
I think it's more likely you get Olave, Drake London types involved in that type of trade. Again, Kyle Pitts also makes a ton of sense for this team. If you wanted to trade, the 103 and the 202 for Kyle Pitts, again, that doesn't sound like a crazy deal. And in some leagues, you'll get that rejected instantly if they know what Kyle Pitts is. But in some other leagues, and given this Mac Jones trade, this could be a more casual league where people don't know what they're doing. You might be able to get Kyle Pitts for the 103 and the 202.
Yeah, no, that would be pretty remarkable in its own right. Side note, that's a Des Bryant jersey. I just wanted to point at the 88 because if somebody's willing to do a move like that. But yeah, no, I agree. Those 103 and 104 picks, like, I am completely gauging the market, because if you're telling me this guy's willing to send a 2024 first for Mac Jones, that probably means that there's a lot of value in, good to elite level quarterback prospect. I mean, if a decent prospect like Mac Jones is getting an early projected 2024 one, I can only imagine what a CJ Stroud, what, a Bryce Young, potentially Anthony Richardson with draft capital, the opportunity to take one of those guys with the picks that you have, what it can net on the open market. So yeah, no, I'm fully willing to sell those off. And like you kind of said, by year 2, year 3, and you build those future capital assets and you worsen your own pick next year, you can build this into a monster, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's where your stud factor is going to come from, right? You're going to get your stud factor next year with Caleb. If you have Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, and Marvin Harrison to build around, like, this is going to be a really good, shell of a team. And then obviously, try and keep making moves to align your picks, like with Ramondre Stevenson. If you can re-roll him and do a 2024 rookie running back in that draft class, that would make a lot of sense given, your winning window, offload some of that risk and align that winning window in, when you actually have those quarterbacks on your roster. So I think we can move on to the next team. We got ChanHughes here, 12-team tiered PPR Superflex. So half PPR for running backs, wide receivers get full PPR, and then a tight end premium there. Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson is his top 2 quarterbacks. Montgomery, Fournette, Jeff Wilson, etc. They're at running back. CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Elijah Moore, Jacoby Myers, etc. at wide receiver. A lot of TJ Hawkinson today. TJ Hawkinson there at tight end. He said he put a couple trades in here as well that we'll get to in a second. Since the season ended, he said he thinks he can squeeze more out of the 102, and we'll talk about that trade in a second. But he said not needing a quarterback with this team, and he said he's really looked to stack as much draft capital in 2024 as he can, and also potentially make a move for because he has Bijan Robinson, so he doesn't know, should he make a move for him? Again, another theme of this video. He said he thinks that this team is ready to add Bijan and compete for the next 5 seasons or so. So he said he wants to take his 203 and potentially another 2024 second, maybe to move into the late first, get another solid running back prospect like Sean Tucker or something like that, possibly add some running back help midseason. in 2023. So in the draft, he does have the 101. He has the 203 and the 311. And then, like he said, he has 4 2024 firsts, including his own, and then a couple that expected to be early to mid, and then a mid to late, and then probably another late one there. So what are your thoughts on like the team? And then we'll get into some of the trades that he made.
Yeah, no, unless, somebody's willing to give me a godfather, I'm much willing to add Bijan Robinson to this team. This team really just needs a superstar running back to be a top 3 level team in your league. You got superstar talent at wide receiver. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, Deontay. That is an absolutely filthy wide receiver core. TJ Hawkinson, although, we're lower on him from a market value standpoint, he should still be, a locked and loaded top 5 level tight end from a production value standpoint. And then, of course, if your quarterbacks stay healthy, Herbert and Jackson should be, top 6 level options at the quarterback position. And Geno Smith, I mean, if he gets re-signed, he proved he can be a top 10 to 12 level quarterback. And having that as your quarterback 3, I think, is very valuable. So overall, I mean, looking at this team, you just need that stud factor at running back. And Bijan Robinson is going to be able to provide that to you. So I would agree with your assessment. Unless somebody's willing to overpay, I'm more than comfortable adding Bijan to this team. In terms of the 2 or 3, maybe you add a falling running back prospect, or maybe you package.
Michael Mayer even makes sense for this team in a tight end premium. If people are undervaluing Michael Mayer, because I've seen it, even in tight end premium formats, people will still let Michael Mayer fall to the early second round, and him and TJ Hawkinson as your tight ends for the future definitely make a ton of sense. So to go back to his question, he said, should I move up with like the 203 and a 2024 second and get up for like a Sean Tucker or something like that? To be honest, I'm starting to cool on Sean Tucker a little bit. I've talked to Danny about this behind the scenes as I built the database. There's not a huge difference between Sean Tucker and Zach Evans and
Kendre
Miller and Zach Charbonnet and all these dudes that are in this kind of like second tier of running back or third tier of running back, if you want to count Bijan in his own tier. I'm personally not really inclined to make a move like that. I would probably just take whoever kind of falls to me.
Yep. 100%. So, I mean, we could look at some of these trades now. I actually remember him asking one of these trades, like if he should do it. And I remember like giving him the go ahead. And I mean, I think it's a good deal. We'll get into it though. So for the first deal, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, you gave away. You ended up receiving the 108 in an early second. More than fine making this move. Realistically, you're getting off of, 2 dead weight running backs, getting the 108, potentially getting, a top 3 level wide receiver in this class, or maybe a quarterback falling. And of course, that 24 early second, if it ends up early, can get you another nice prospect there. So perfectly fine with the value you're able to get. I'm assuming the guy who bought these running back was trying to, compete for a championship, and you're able to cash in on that in season. So I think that's a good move there.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I would have gotten a little bit more just given the production value of those players, but I think at value, I think those are fine,
yeah.
Assets that you received there. Trade number 2, and this is the one he was referring to, where he gave up the 102. He said he thinks he could have got more out of this trade, but what are your thoughts on the 102, which he gave up, and he received a mid-2024 first, the 203, and the 303?
I probably would have held out for at least 2 ones, if personally. Like, even if it was a 24 mid first and a 24, mid to late first, like I that's probably what I would have held out for. I think you probably sold it a little too early, because I feel like once, the NFL draft happens and Bryce Young is the first overall pick, like that market is going to be legitimately, honestly, close to top 10 level value in Superflex. Like, you can make the argument, Bryce Young and Bijan Robinson will be like the 1A, 1B in this draft class if Bryce gets that type of draft capital. In certain leagues that really, really value the quarterback position. Because, I mean, if we're looking at right now, right, there's probably maybe at least 10 quarterbacks that we can easily say that we would take over him. Maybe you can argue him 11 or 12. Like, and if you're getting the top,
it's a real conversation point when you talk about a guy like Bryce Young versus, Dak Prescott and Tua Tagovailoas and guys like that, or Trey Lance, like in that territory. And those guys are consistently like early second round, mid second round type of startup picks.
Yeah.
And you're only taking a handful of non-quarterback assets over them, like the top 2 LSU wide receivers and probably Kyle Pitts, maybe Lamb, or, somebody after that. For the most part, I think Bryce Young will be solidified as at least a 2-3 turn pick in startups for the most part. So I do think you sold a little bit low. If you had gotten a 2024 mid first, the 203, and then like a 2024 second, I think that's probably about appropriate value. But like I said, I think you probably could have gotten a little bit more closer to the draft, like Danny was kind of mentioning. We can get into the next trade here. He got the 106, or he gave up the 106, sorry, and the 303, and he received a 2024 late first round pick and Mike Williams. Now, I don't exactly know when this trade happened. If this was during the season, maybe you were trying to like push your chips in or something like that. I would say at face value, like a late first versus the 106. I mean, I would prefer the 106, but it's not like an outrageous difference to the point that like Mike Williams over the 303 is obviously going to make it up. So I think this is a fair trade even. Like it's probably like a B level trade.
And I mean, looking at the picks that you've already accumulated in 2024, you're trying to gain that monopoly on that 2024 draft class. So I don't mind making this move. I mean, you kind of looked at your roster already and realized, hey, like I got a solid, stable here. I know I'm probably going to add, a valuable running back for next year, and I could potentially compete in 2023. And you get, Mike Williams for the cheap, still get first round equity with that late first. I don't mind making this move at all. And in fact, I think it actually makes your team better for what you're trying to do in 2023. So I like that move. And then finally, the move that got you, Bijan Robinson. Listen, like 107, 108, 109 seems very steep on the surface. However, given the status of your roster and given what you need, again, because you have that type of draft equity and you still have 2024 first round picks, I take it that if you really need to get first round picks back, it's not going to be too hard for you to be able to do. So packaging, a couple of those like lottery shots and getting, a stud Bijan Robinson factor for this team in its current status, I don't mind, quote unquote, a little bit overpaying on market value personally.
Yeah, and I think when you just like think about startup value on these players, let's assign some names real quick. So let's say it's Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, and Zach Charbonnet, who go 107, 108, 109. Those guys are where in startups? 4th, 5th round startup picks. Maybe you get like one of those receivers sneaks into like the back of the 3rd, mid 4th type of area. And then you got a guy that is going to go in the 1st round, most likely, if not at the very, very start of the 2nd round.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're in a startup and somebody offered you, let's say they pick like, 406 and like 506, like they're just in the middle of the 2 rounds. They pick those 2 players. 7th. And then like the 7th round, probably, or 6th round, maybe. Yeah. If somebody offered you that in a startup, again, at face value, seems like a lot to give up. But the stud factor of a guy like Bijan Robinson, who, one RB1 season and he's a top, 5, top 7 pick in startups, even in super flex formats, people are going to take him that high if he has a great rookie season. I think we're talking about a pretty fair trade on the surface.
It's also only a start 9, which is really huge for the stud factor because you want a player, if there's less players in your starting lineup, to be able to have that 20 plus PPR point per game type of ceiling that Bijan Robinson does. So in the start 9, like if this was like a start 11 or 12, you can argue that the depth would matter a lot more. But I mean, you already have a fucking ton of depth. It's only a start 9. You're inserting a legitimate game changer, a running back. Yeah, perfectly fine paying this package. I feel like we can move on to the next team though, and that's going to be from Roger. Superflex start 9, another start 9 league. Quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, tight end, flex, and super flex. So interesting in this dynamic. There's 3 wide receivers and 1 flex versus the 2-2 format you typically see. So in terms of the team, Burrow, Herbert, Zappi, and Ellinger at quarterback, running back, Hall, Swift, Carter, Kelly, and Kevin Harris. Wide receiver, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Jerry Jeudy, Rashad Bateman, Jameson Williams, very, very loaded at wide receiver. And then finally at tight end, the gold standard Kyle Pitts and Pat Freiermuth.
This is the gold standard of rebuilding tight end cores, is having Pitts Freiermuth, in my opinion. If you have Pitts Freiermuth in a rebuild, you are very, very well set up at that position. And then also no first rounder in 2023, 202, 204, 312, 406, and then no first rounder in 2024 as well. So he said he made a few trades and changes to the lineup from the time that we reviewed this team last year for him. He said he went from 7th place with the young team and, he went from last to 7th place with the young team and recently made the trade to acquire Jamar Chase. He didn't actually say what were the terms of the trade were, but I mean, going out and acquiring a guy like Chase is usually a good idea in any kind of situation. He said, we'll probably go running back with the 202 and 204 unless a wide receiver falls to the 2nd round that he really likes. Obviously, he said he could always use next year's picks to pick up a serviceable running back to go with a nice young core of wide receivers. So unfortunately, you don't have any like first round picks here, but you don't really have a whole lot of weaknesses. The only unfortunate thing about this team is that your immediate production at running back is stunted by the fact that Breece Hall got injured. But your wide receiver core is ready to compete. Your tight end core is ready to compete. Your top 2 quarterbacks are ready to compete. I'm a little nervous that you don't really have anybody that you could start as a 3rd quarterback. I would maybe inquire about a guy like Mac Jones as like a 3rd QB for this roster. If nobody there at like 202, if nobody's there that you love at running back, I don't hate just offloading that pick for a 3rd quarterback.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that as well. I mean, even if you have to see this is a conversation point. Would you be willing, like, say for instance, you're going to know this by then, but Geno Smith signs a bridge contract, 3 years, $85 million, let's just say hypothetically. Would you be willing to send one of those 202 or 204 for him? in this roster?
I would say with a guy like Geno or like Tannehill or Carr or like any of these veteran quarterbacks, I'm probably more likely to just buy them if I need them, like
Yeah,
in
that's
season
fair.
if I needed them, versus like going after a guy like Mac Jones. He's more of like a long-term asset that you don't really need right away. So if you get on the board and like Charbonnet and Bigsby and Evans and all these guys that you like are all gone at running back, and you're looking at like maybe you don't love like a Zay Flowers or something like that, and you could just send the 202 for a young third quarterback. I think that's probably a little bit
Yep.
better of a move as far as like trading the 202 or the 204 for like Tannehill or for, Geno Smith or something. I'd probably wait until like I actually needed to do something like that, because you could
Yeah,
probably get a cheaper third quarterback for like
I
your
agree.
third round pick in 2024 or something if you wanted to.
Yeah, maybe somebody just wants to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo and is willing to do it for your 2 third-round picks. Like I
Yeah. Yeah, I think overall this is a shell of a really good team. The thing that makes me concerned is that you're pretty weak at running back, but if you do add some guys in this year's draft class, then that could kind of mitigate that risk. I think if things broke right for this team, they could absolutely win the championship. It depends, how long this league has been kind of in commission too. Like if this league's been around 7 years or something, and there's like 3 super teams, that makes it a little tougher. But I would say this should comfortably be one of the 3 or 5 best teams, or the 2 to 3 best teams, sorry, in your league. So I'm ready to kind of just compete with this thing. Hopefully you can hit on your draft picks. If you hit on, a top 20 dynasty running back this time next year with both of those second round picks, then you're going to be in a really good spot as far as your depth, your stud top end talent, and, your ability to compete.
For sure. We can move on to the next team here from Jeff. I'll let you take it away with Jeff's team.
Yeah, so he did an auction startup this year. He ended up coming in third place, and he drafted this team expecting to compete in a year or so. So kind of went into the draft with like a house money type of situation, and he ended up coming in third. He said he will have pick 10 in every round, obviously, because he came in third place, and he does have what looks like all of his draft picks with no included extra draft picks. So with this team, Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson as the main quarterback. He has Kenneth Walker, A.J. Dillon, Cam Akers, Tyler Algier, Miles Sanders, Rashad White. So pretty deep at the running back position there. A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy, Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson, Rashad Bateman, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, and David Bell, and then Dallas Goedert, Pat Freiermuth, and Trey McBride. So I would say this is one of the more well-constructed teams all around, just position by position. You have good players at every single position. It looks like it's a one quarterback league, but I can't really tell because just given what we know about Jeff, I think he doesn't really play a whole lot of superflex. So I'm kind of just going gut feeling based on what we know about him. And if this is a superflex league, there's a clear weakness on the team. It's at the third quarterback spot. But for the most part, I think this is a pretty complete team. There's not a whole lot that I would do with this team as far
Agreed.
as, transitioning things, because I think a lot of your running backs have a chance to gain a lot of value. Maybe you want to go after maybe a stud running back. Like you could gauge the market price on like Jonathan Taylor, for example. If you take, if we get some news about Aaron Jones potentially getting cut or something, you could take like A.J. Dillon and maybe Tyler Algier and like a second round pick or something and go after a guy like Jonathan Taylor if the guy's looking for like more running back depth. But as far as acquiring studs, that's pretty much like the only thing I'd be looking to do potentially with this team, because you're very deep at pretty much every position outside of third quarterback if it's a super flex.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's not much overall that I would do. Again, maybe, if you can get a stud on the low, I would look to do that. Overall, I think you constructed this very well. You have ample depth and ample talent at each position. You just, of course, you need that player that could potentially win you over the top. And even if you have to, buy an older veteran for production value going into the season, I'd be willing to do that. So overall, good job here. I think you did a really good work constructing this team. Not much else I can add, to be honest.
Yeah, so that is the end of the video. Again, we went a little longer than we typically like to go, but this is our first DD in probably in a month or so. So we're getting back into the swing of things. Of course, now that redraft season has winded down and we're getting into like the prospect stuff, we're going to be running dynasty decisions at least weekly, if not maybe more than once a week. So definitely keep submitting those teams. If you want to skip the line, you guys know what to do. Head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. Over there, you'll get, not only will you get first dibs on dynasty decisions, you'll also get access to our Dynasty Rankings Manifesto 2.0, which has all of our positional rankings, bucketed rankings, 2023 prospect rankings, everything that you could ask for, rookie pick values on these players, buy, sell, hold advice, all that good stuff over there. Quarterback and running back draft class databases, so you guys can dig into these prospects yourself and start to make informed opinions based on real data rather than just like Twitter narratives like we like to discourage those of you guys from following around here. So if that interests you, that'll be linked down below in the description if you want to check it out. But that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.
Wire me the money.